Hello everyone. Today we're going to talk about GameSalad. What is GameSalad? I'm going to give you a complete demo. We'll look at who might want to use GameSalad, what they're going to learn when they're in GameSalad, and how you can use GameSalad to help teach your students. So let's get started. GameSalad is a professional game development platform that's used by people all over the world who want to develop video games and push those to the app stores. What we've done with GameSalad for Education is we have combined that professional platform access with curriculum that will help your students learn computer science foundations, and they're going to do it through video game creation. They're also going to learn about game design and practice game design themselves. GameSalad for Education does have a web version, and that's going to be Chromebook compatible as well. We'll talk more about the complete list of features for using the platform virtually. One thing you can keep in mind is that GameSalad curriculum can be dual focus. You can focus more on learning those computer science foundational concepts and moving through the tutorial games slowly and completely. You can also use GameSalad to teach game design. Students can bring their own creativity and their own assets into the platform. They may have already learned computer science foundations, and they'll be able to focus purely on game design, and they get more into the advanced aspects of that as they go through the curriculum. When students make games, they want to code. Our teachers told us that their students have an increased interest in STEM. Their problem-solving skills are improved, and they're ready to learn more advanced coding and computer science after using GameSalad, and they also enjoyed their time in the platform. Our teachers also mentioned that boys and girls are engaging almost equally with the platform. So where does GameSalad fit? Over here we have block coding. This is going to be the puzzle pieces that fit together, the simple coding activities that your students may have already done. And way over here on the other side, we have full scripting language programming. GameSalad is in between. We have some snippets of text-based coding in our expression editor, so that can be a good introduction to that text-based typing style coding where the semicolon placement is very important. But we're not as simple as the puzzle pieces either. Our interface looks like this, and it really helps that middle group of students. We still want to keep them engaged so that they don't lose computer science as an interest. So let's talk about computer science education. In the US, most 12th graders have never even taken a CS class. It can be boring. There aren't a lot of teachers who are able to be trained in CS. And because it's offered as an elective, students have to pick that class. And that's one of the reasons we want to keep them engaged and we want to get them excited and have something that they are willing to say, yes, give me that as an elective. Our platform does that because teachers don't need a computer science background. Because of the curriculum that we provide, which is one step at a time, teachers are able to just allow their students to learn with the materials that we provide. We've got high student engagement, and that's why we're perfect for 6th grade and beyond. Let's say you're done with the block coding over here, but you're only in 6th grade, and you don't have a computer science offering until 9th or 10th grade when you do some full scripting coding language. You might choose other electives, and by the time you get to 9th grade, you're not even thinking about computer science. GameSalad will help you engage your students and give them that desire to keep coding. So let's talk about what's included with the GameSalad Classroom offering. I call this the GameSalad Classroom universe. These are all the different aspects that you'll receive when you get a GameSalad for Education subscription. First of all, the students are going to live here in the middle in the platform creator website. This is where they will build their games and view the tutorials that you give them. The teachers get a full dashboard site of their own, which lists all of the different curriculum and allows you to control assigning that to your students. You also can manage their individual accounts, assign them quizzes, of course, grade the quizzes, find additional materials for you to use, including full lesson plans. So each of the game building units comes with about 9 or 10 hours of more lesson plan activities that you can choose to do with your students. And there are two ways for your students to enjoy their finished games by taking them outside of the platform. Your students can publish their games online. The game will have a unique URL, and you can just share that URL with your family and friends. And when they navigate to it, they'll go straight to their student's game and be able to play it, even though they don't have a GameSalad subscription. This will live outside of the GameSalad interface. We also have the GameSalad Viewer app. The Viewer app is downloaded from the App Store onto a device, and it allows students to snap a QR code of their game and have that game loaded onto the device through the Viewer app. So you can use that for testing. Imagine you actually are trying to build a game that's meant to be played on iPhones. You could test it as you build it, make sure it's working right on your iPhone. But you can also use it to keep your finished game on that phone. And that gives your student a tangible version of their work in a game format that they're used to having these days right on their device. Your students are going to be practicing all of these computer science foundational concepts as they build their projects in GameSalad. The lesson plans are going to give you ways to further underline those concepts with additional activities so that as they're building, they're really coming to understand these basic concepts of computer science. Your students are going to use these concepts no matter what type of programming they might choose to study next. So even if it's not game design, they can use GameSalad as a jumping off point where they will be able to remember, oh yes, I did this in GameSalad, and it'll give them that foundation that they need to take their computer science education further. So let's talk about what your students are actually going to be doing in the platform. We provide these tutorials which take your students through one step at a time how to build different types of games. For our audience that's going to be the beginners, which is typically middle school but can be any age middle school or up, they're going to spend most of their time building these tutorial games. And then they may add complexity to them by completing the challenges that we provide that prompt you to make small changes to the logic that make it more complex. And they can add their own images and sounds to make the games unique. Some of the games that are included are Monster Maze. We've got Space Runner, which is a platformer. We have Fruit Fall, so you move the basket back and forth. You catch the fruit, but you avoid the frogs and the snails. And we have Pong and several other games included. Now, right away, the students are going to be able to modify their games. This is the simplest way of making a game more unique without being overwhelmed by having to invent new logic. You can take the template and transform it into something that's your own. So for example, this one, we have the Fruit Fall game the way that it is programmed, and then we have the Pulga over here, the flea market, which a student made. In this game, the student has created all of their own graphics and sounds. When you play the game, and you play the little sound file here, you get a story about how the boy is going to the market to get fruit so his grandmother can bake a pie. And you want to get the good fruit, there's the bad apple, and avoid the bad fruit. That's the bad strawberry. I don't want those. I want the good fruit. It's so cute. So as you can see, it looks and feels completely different even though it is based on the Fruit Fall template. Similarly, Desert Runner here, we show the students how to build Space Runner, and here in Desert Runner, it looks totally different as this student has probably found online all their own graphics and sounds. And so it looks almost nothing like the Space Runner template that we provide. We're about to go and look at the platform. I just want to highlight a few of the features that are going to make this really accessible to students. They are going to add their own graphics and sound, build and expand beyond the tutorials. They're going to create original games. They can publish to iOS, Android, or HTML5. They can preview on their phone or tablet. And then we've got tools for debugging, on and off buttons on our logic, error notifications to show them when they need to finish filling something out. And then we've got that quick and easy preview that I'll show you. One thing to keep in mind as we look at the platform is how this is going to be used for game design as well. For our advanced audience, that will be high school, college, other students who might be interested in a game design course, you can focus on the art and the story. You should still start with the tutorials. Just do them quickly as a way of getting to know the platform and the way that it works, and then move on to building original games. We also have a capstone unit. It says a lesson plan for teachers, where it walks the teacher through how to approach building an original game. It's designed from the perspective of a small group. Because you can do pair programming in the platform and have more than one student work in the platform on the same game at the same time in the web version, that's a really good tool to create a portfolio item for students who might want to be moving toward game design as a career. Being able to show that you worked with other students collaboratively to code something is something that recruiters might be interested in seeing. Since, of course, when you code professionally, you don't do it in a vacuum. You don't make a game all by yourself. You have to work with others on that. But these students are going to be creating original games. They're going to be writing the story. They're going to be either finding or actually making the graphics and sounds in other platforms and importing them into GameSalad. We're about to see how quickly you can prototype in the platform. There's a link here where our co-founder Tan builds a social distancing model. He goes from a blank screen in about 30 minutes, he's got the whole working model, and you see him go back and forth and modify things as needed. Definitely something that teachers can watch to get a feel for how quickly you can create original games in the platform and how easy it is to experiment. These are just 3 examples. We have this student who created original art here with a alien invasion type game. This one is a choose your own adventure game where a student has moved to a new school and he has to navigate the social aspects of that. And then here's an asteroids game where a student has created everything themselves. So the last thing to keep in mind as we look at the platform are the more advanced features of the GameSalad platform offering. There is a physics engine that is always on. There's an accelerometer. There's support for tables. You can create those real apps. And you can experiment with practicing text-based coding in snippets called expressions. If you're in the platform and you click here on the expression editor, you open a dialog box where you can type out on your keyboard the expression that you would like to have. This is a great way for students to experience scripting in little snippets and get a gentle introduction to that text-based coding. So let's go over into the platform and check it out. And then we'll come back and highlight the features that can be used for distance learning. So here we have the GameSalad web creator. All students and teachers will log in at creator.gamesalad.com, and their interface is going to start out looking like this. On top of the creator interface, students will have this assignments window. The assignments window is where they're going to find the step-by-step instructions for building the different types of tutorial games. The instructions are very detailed. They have screenshots as well as text for you to read. And you can see it says click on new. So there's a red arrow pointing to the new button. So the student would then come back here into the platform and click on new. And then the next step will tell them import the Monster Maze template, and it shows you which one right here. And it continues through the instructions in a very detailed way. There's also a video. So each of the tutorial units is going to come with a video recording that both explains interface and shows the steps for building the games. You can pop this video out into its own tab and then tab back and forth. You can pop the whole assignments window out into its own tab, or you can anchor it around on different sides of the screen, whatever fits your learning style the best. The only thing to keep in mind is that you're going to have to move this out of the way to finish working in the platform. So let's talk about the interface. I'll open a project. Web version has everything fitted into a single browser window with different items visible depending on which columns and buttons in the columns you've pressed. The downloaded version, which is also available, functions much the same but has a different look. So you can imagine it's sort of like the difference between using Excel and using Google Sheets, where you can do the same things, but visually it's going to look a little bit different. So here on the web version, whatever you press in the leftmost column dictates what appears in the nextmost column, dictates what appears in the middle. So when I have scene highlighted, I have my list of scenes. I can add more scenes this way. And the scenes are built on what's known as the stage. A scene is equivalent to a level in a game, and you can move the items around on your screen, which will dictate the way that the scene looks when it opens. Now, all of the logic inside of GameSalad is housed within the vessel of an actor. Everything on my scene here is an actor. This is a maze actor. This is a prize actor. This is my monster actor. And so even if your logic doesn't have a visual component, you're going to want to put an actor onto your scene that is an invisible actor holding the logic for that actor. So the only way to get programming onto your scene and active in your game is to have an actor with that programming in it. So when I highlight my actors tab, I get my list of actors here. I can add more with this button. And when I highlight an actor, the middle changes to the logic stack view. So this is the code for my actor. In GameSalad, code is added by finding a behavior and then dragging and dropping it into the logic stack to help fill out the code. You can see I haven't completed this one yet, so it's giving me a little red error here to help remind me that I've got something to do to make this complete. Now this game is finished already, but the tutorial here that the students will be following is going to explain to them one step at a time which behaviors to add, how to fill them out, where to put them, how to nest them. Everything's done step by step for you. And the tutorial is going to explain to you how to build one complete level of each game. There are also additional challenges you can assign your students to help them start thinking about ways to modify and make the game more interesting, more elaborate, add logic, modify logic. But you can add as many scenes as you want. That's the way that you expand on the tutorial and make your game longer, more interesting, more complex, because you already have all the actors built here, and you can continue to just add the actors onto your new scenes. So let's talk about what makes GameSalad accessible as far as rapid iteration and testing. That's going to be this preview button here. When you preview the game, it spins up a version of your game that's playable as far as you have coded it to be. So right now my monster moves, he moves left, right, up, down, that's all correct. He eats the candy, he's supposed to do that. Oh, he goes straight through the maze wall. Well, he's not supposed to do that. So very quickly by test playing my game, I know that I have something I need to fix. So I'm going to go into my monster and I realize I've got him colliding with the wall, but I don't have him colliding with the maze. Bounce when colliding with maze. You saw down there it auto-saved, and if I preview again and I test play my game, now he bounces off the wall or doesn't go through. So this is a fantastic tool for allowing your students to debug their game very quickly. Debugging is a very important aspect of computer programming, and coders should do that as often as they possibly can. So as a best practice, you'll help your students remember that even after just every single behavior, if they just quickly preview, they'll know that whatever doesn't match what they thought it would must be taking place in the logic that they've just added. So if you build your whole monster, see he has a little bit of a long logic stack, and then you preview and something is missing, you will need to go read through your behaviors and your rules and find which one is off and then change it, which isn't that bad. But if you had previewed in between every time, then you got to test play your game for 2 seconds at a time and you didn't get lost. We have some other tools here, which are the buttons, so you can disable the rules this way without deleting them, which also makes them inactive in the system. If I previewed again, my monster would walk through the maze wall because this is turned off. This is another way that you can help with debugging or just other types of testing you might want to do when you're experimenting with your logic. And as you can imagine, the play button preview feature also helps with testing and experimentation. So a student can just say, well, what if I wanted my monster to do this? And you just add some behaviors, test play your game, and see if you made it do what you wanted it to do. If you didn't, then what did you tell the system to do? And how can you go back and change that to make it do what you thought you asked it to do the first time? So it's really fun for students to get that instant feedback. Over here is where you can add your own images and sounds to each of your games. You simply drag and drop the files into the image bank or search for them here on your computer. Same with sounds. And this is a really quick way of getting your students to help their games also look very unique very easily, as we talked about. So imagine that I just put a picture of my brother's head instead of the monster and a pizza slice instead of the candy, and all of a sudden the whole look and feel of the game is completely customized only to me, and all I had to do was swap out 2 images. Let's pop over and look at the publishing options. To publish a project, you very simply click the export button. and you can update or create a new file for your published project. You get a notification here that your project is being packaged and published into your online GameSalad portfolio. And then you have another tab here that shows you your published projects. You can find the viewer QR code straight from this menu. And when you snap the QR code in the GameSalad Viewer app, you'd get a copy of that published project to play on your phone through the app. If you want to visit the publishing portfolio for the project, you can click here to open publish.gamesalad.com in your account. And you do have the option to publish to all of these formats. Students are most often simply going to publish to the arcade. But again, if they were to want to create original content and pursue publishing those to some of the major app stores, they can package their games so that they are ready to be submitted to the app stores. And then on their own, outside of the GameSalad platform, they would need to have an App Store account that they have purchased and are working with to actually submit their games for publishing. But GameSalad will allow them to be packaged so that they are ready to do that. Let's pop back over to the slides and look at the distance learning features. And then we'll look at the dashboard together to go over how to use these features. You can use GameSalad for distance learning or classroom teaching. You can run GameSalad web version on Chromebooks, laptops, or desktops. Chromebooks should have at least 2 gigs of RAM, which is not very much, but that is a minimum to run the GameSalad creator website. You can sign in with Google if students have a Google account you would like them to use, or you can use anonymous logins, basically a made-up email address that's not a real email address at all, it's just used for a login purpose. And teachers can also control all of those logins in the dashboard. Of course, you have the step-by-step tutorials, which we've seen, which allows for self-paced study. So if you're not in the same room and students might be working on their own time, they've got those step-by-step instructions to help them along. We do have subtitles on the videos, which are currently available in English and Spanish. We talked about multi-user editing, the fact that more than one student can be in a project at the same time, each from their own computers. And teachers through the dashboard can actually port into their students' projects to view them. They can monitor the student progress through the tutorials, and they can assign quizzes for the students to take right here in the assignments window as well. So let's go look at the dashboard. Teachers will have this toggle at the top of their screen where they can go back and forth from the dashboard to the creator. Teachers have their own creator account like a student does, and the dashboard side is blue, so I call it the blue side. Click on the name of your class. You have your roster here. You'll see all of your students that have joined your class appear in the list. So the name field only appears here in your list of students in your class. If you leave it blank, then the username appears over here instead. You can use a Google email address like we talked about or a made up one. And all of these fields are editable by the teacher. So you can change your student's login if you needed to do that for some reason. You can see their password to remind them of what it is. You can change their username. Of course, you can update what their name says so it appears here on the left side. And even if you can't see the password, so the password has the line through the eyeball, then you can't see their original password. But you actually could still change it yourself and click save, and it would update to a new password that you could remind them of. Let's look at the curriculum tab. In the curriculum tab, you have all of the different game units that we offer. We also have additional lesson plan units that don't have any student-facing content, but they do have lesson plans that teachers can use in order to expand on the curriculum for your course. So you receive all of the content and you're welcome to choose any of these units that help fit your learning goals for the class. This one about why bother to study computer science talks about the history of video games and careers in computer science, even what it is. We have digital citizenship units here, which are basically about safely navigating the internet, online safety, netiquette, social media. And then of course our capstone game project we talked about, where you build an original game from the ground up in a small group. But let's open one of the game projects. So you have these accordions that show the lesson plan here in sections, but you can also access that more easily in the lesson plan PDF in the materials tab. These are the lesson plans that accompany each of the tutorials. And what most of my teachers do is read through and decide which of these activities are actually going to fit their course the best, and then they pull those activities out to do. If you're going to be distance learning, you'll want to pick activities that you can format into a virtual environment. So for example, if you're going to be doing a brainstorming activity, you could do something like ask the students to brainstorm ahead of class and post their answers on like a shared board that you all access. And then in your Zoom meeting, you could discuss those ideas. But this is all here for you to pick and choose. There's about 9 hours of content for each game unit. There's also a PDF of the tutorial. If your students would like to have this instead, it has all the screenshots and all the steps. They're quite long because of the screenshots, but it is here for you to download and use. It can also be a great way for you to scroll through and find a certain step if you're wanting to look at it yourself. And I do have teachers who tell me that their students would prefer to use this PDF rather than the assignments tab, which is definitely an option. Another thing available here is the import button for each of the games. So when you push this import button as a teacher, you get a template that's complete that's being dumped into your creator account. So if I flip over to my creator account, I have an instance of Monster Maze that's already done. You can use that as an answer key or as a jumping off point if you want to customize the game without actually having to start from nothing. You get one that's finished. You can use it to compare to the logic that your students make in their game if you're actually checking through their logic yourself. If they followed the tutorial, then their game should look very similar to the answer key example that we provide. There are other materials here, so any of the lesson plan sections that have an attachment or a document also appear in the materials tab. I like showing these. So this is the student game design rubric. You can give this to your students so they have an idea of what a basic, proficient, or advanced game might look like across all of these criteria. This is another fun one, the planning document. So you can give this one to your students, have them fill it out about their favorite video game. So they start thinking about game design, unpacking what goes into designing a game. What are you trying to achieve? How do you know what the goal is? How do you play the game? How do you lose? How do you win? And then later, if they're building their own game, they can use the same document to help guide them through. So there's lots of aspects of game design in the lesson plans themselves as well. The assignments tab here is where you're actually going to choose which assignment tutorials your students see. You can assign the entire tutorial at once, you can assign the quiz, or you can assign the tutorial in smaller pieces. So maybe just assign them 1 or 2 parts at a time. Each part does have its own video. That can help to keep students from getting too far ahead of other students, or it can help them from feeling overwhelmed. So you can give them a couple of parts to start with so that when they're on their own at home, it feels workable to them. So how do you know what your student is doing? In the Progress tab, there are 2 ways to monitor your students' progress through the content. One is going to be looking at their actual time spent viewing each of the assignments tabs. So I've got 2 students working in here, and let me show you what this is actually looking at. The progress monitors how long the student spends viewing each of these screen steps. The idea being that as they view this and have this up and open on their computer, they are back here and actually doing the work. And so they'll click to the next one, they'll do the work, which is why I think that this information works best in aggregate. So if I have a class of students and I think they should have all spent about 20 minutes and have gotten to part 2, then I can glance through and say, okay, all my students have been on here for 20, 30 minutes, and it looks like they've all gotten to part 2, and then you can look for outliers. So this student has only spent 1 minute and 18 seconds, but she is on part 2. Well, that means that she's probably just gone and clicked through, which may be because she wanted to see what would happen when she got to the end, wanted to look through the whole thing. or maybe because she just didn't do any work and only looked through. This will capture the aggregate time they spent. So even if they click through, but then they go back and actually begin working, it will continue to count the time they spent on each page. You can actually see in detail how long they spent on each page. Conversely, this student has spent over an hour and they've only gotten through part 2. So probably what this student did is they just left their window open and then they went and did other things on their computer. So this is a great snapshot, and my teachers have told me that they just tell their students, I can see what you're doing in there, so make sure that you're working. So in order to see what they've actually done, you want to port into their project. So you simply highlight your student's name, you click on their projects. You can see both their working projects or their published projects, and when you click on one of their working projects, you actually port in a limited tab into their account. When you close this tab, you'll still be in your own teacher dashboard account logged into GameSalad in your browser as yourself. But in this tab, I am my student. This is my assignments drawer, not my students. But with this view, I have a complete working view of the game. I can see and actually manipulate my student's game. It's live, so I could change it if I want. Looks like they've completed a lot of level 1. You can view all of the actors and all of the actors' logic. If you wanted to, there is a note behavior. You can drag a note in here and actually type a note to your student right in their logic stack if there's something specific you want them to know. You can also preview their game, which is probably the fastest way to either grade their finished work or to just test their game and see how it's working. Okay, my student has all the controls right so far. They can't quite get through the maze right there, so that's something that they'll want to work on. But you can easily test it quickly and see how far they've gone. You can also use this view to collaborate live with your student. So your student could be on their computer in the game and you could be on your computer in the game. I had a teacher tell me that they wanted to use this feature as sort of a teachable moment. So if the student had a question about what they wanted to do with their logic, the teacher could port into the student's game just like this, then share the student's game via Zoom, and then ask the class, well, class, how would you try and accomplish what this student wants to do? And then the whole class is looking at the student's game together. The student and the teacher both have control of actually making and testing some of those changes that might be discussed by the whole class together. So there's some great ways that you can take advantage of these features in order to help your students work in a remote environment. Let's talk briefly about how you might approach teaching GameSalad to some new students in a virtual learning environment. What my teachers have said works best for them is that students may need a teacher-led environment through the first game or at least part of the first game. And after that, most students are able to complete the work self-paced on their own. One of my teachers explained that what she did was she had everyone on a Zoom call and then she played the video for them.
Monster Maze Part
You can
1.
expand that to be the whole screen. And she said, let's just all watch the video together. Then the teacher said, now we'll all build on our own computers what we have just seen. And then the teacher narrated the steps again. So the student is working on their own screen. They're hearing the teacher say, okay, click on new. Does everybody have that? Okay, open the Monster Maze template. Does everyone have that? And they're building what they've just seen done as they're being explained it again. And then you can choose how to help your students beyond that. You could have them share their screen if they get lost and you can kind of guide them through where they need to be. I had another teacher tell me that they were going to have their students share their screen when they did figure everything out. So they could say, okay, this student has gotten all of the correct logic in. Let's take a look at what it looks like. And then later, once they're actually building, of course, you'll have that ability to pop over into your dashboard, actually port into your student's account and look at their game yourself to help them troubleshoot their logic. The last thing I want to note here about support for teachers is that we do have a support team. The support team can be reached here at the chat bubble in the dashboard. It can be reached through support.gamesalad.com. which also has the chat bubble, or you can simply email support@gamesalad.com. There's some great FAQs in here for education about assigning curriculum, how to get more assets for your projects, and you can actually send the support team the URL of your student's game that they're having trouble with. Just send them a note that says, "Hey, my student looked at this, I looked at it, can you help us with this problem?" The team has looked at the game so many times, they're happy to do that for you, and you're welcome to ask them. We don't want our teachers to spend hours trying to find, one teeny tiny detail in the game that might have been accidentally changed without the student realizing what they did when they were experimenting. So let me see if I've covered everything that we need to look at. Yes, perfect. So just to recap, we've got those TEKS and CSTA aligned lesson plans. You can do roster management, quiz grading. You've got those completed sample projects to use as an answer key. You can port directly into your students' accounts, and you've got ongoing support for our teachers. These are some of our teachers tweeting about us. So GameSalad lets students take their first steps into coding logic easily and quickly, but it still has great flexibility and power for those who want to tackle more complex projects. We also have a teacher who just has a whole list of soft skills that her students are learning as they're going through the platform: project management, software testing, analytical thinking, workflows, teamwork, design, creativity, leadership, initiative. So these are all aspects of the power of the platform when it's used to help students pull themselves into computer science and coding when they otherwise might not be interested. Thank you so much for spending time with me to look at the demo of our platform. Teachers, I am always impressed. I appreciate your time today and all the work that you do teaching our kids. Have a wonderful day and let me know how we can help you.